Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is a lecture video in Operations Management, BANA 3000, Section E01, Spring 2021. And this lecture is on MRP. So let's bring up the notes. Now, MRP stands for Material Requirements Planning. And Week 5, which is MRP, the text resources are Chapter 14, Material Requirements Planning and ERP, beginning on page 575 in the textbook. Now, this development will mostly follow the text with some added terminology. Also, not all the material in Chapter 14 will be covered. The chapter outline and coverage in the course are given in this table. And you notice I cover the first two. MRP structure is mostly covered. MRP management is not covered. And the lot sizing techniques, some are covered because I cover a few of the techniques, but not all of them. Extensions to MRP, I do cover some of it. Again, not all of it. MRP and services is not covered, and I just mentioned ERP. Okay, 578 is dependent demand. The MRP is a dependent demand technique. In other words, if you have a product that you're building, let's say an automobile, well then the windshield's demand is dependent on the automobile demand. So that demand is dependent on each other. Next is dependent inventory model requirements, and this is covered. The MPS, the bill of materials, accurate inventory, purchase orders, lead times, all this is covered as introduction to the MRP structure and mechanics. Now, MRP structure here is mostly covered. Determining net requirements, page 585, and safety stock. I don't cover safety stock in the mechanics of it, but I do cover safety stock in describing what it is. But here is where most of this lecture is going to reside. Determining your net requirements, your projected stock balance, your planned order releases, your inventory policy. Okay, here the dynamics and JRT, they're not covered. Lot sizing techniques, some covered, because I will cover only the LFL that's covered in this development. LFL is lot for lot. That's the only lot sizing technique I cover. I do not cover EOQ, part period balancing, Wagner-Witten algorithm. I don't cover these in this lecture. Extensions to MRP, some are covered. I say some covered because I mention MRP2, closed loop, and I do mention it a little bit, but I don't go into it in depth. Services is not covered, and I mention ERP. That's what I mean by some covered. Okay, let's get into it. First, we start on page 580, something called the bills of material. Now, the bills of material represent the way the items link together. What's the dependency? How is it dependent? So here we have the A item. And the A item here at the top of the structure, top of the hierarchy. The A item is actually the final product. That's like the automobile or the computer. It's the final product that's being sold. Now, these other items, like the B item and the C item, these other items are sub-items or components that go into other items. And there's where the dependent demand comes. For example, the B here, the multiplier is 2. And the source item is the A item. So the source is I, the multiplier is 2, so I have 2 times B. So the way this is going to be reported and the way I represent this is say, okay, well, for every A, I need 2 B items. For example, if A is an automobile, for every automobile, B is a windshield wiper, I need 2 windshield wipers. So I need 2 of those for every automobile. So the demand of the windshield wipers, the B item, is dependent on the demand of the A item, which is the automobile. But the way I represent this down here is that B is going to be represent 2 per A, where A is the source item here, and B represents 2 times A, or 2 for every A. And I'll show you how this works, how this information is used in MRP in just a minute. Okay, and notice here 3C for every A. So C equals 3 per A. Now down here, D has two sources. It has a B source and an F source. I need D. I need 2 D's for every B and 2 D's for every F. So right here's my D. Where's my D? Here's my D. So 2D for every B and 2D for every F. So the way I'm going to write that, here's my D is 2 per B plus 2 per F. So I have two sources that my D, my 1D MRP, has to satisfy. It has to satisfy the demand, the dependent demand on B and F. It has to do both of them. Okay, and then next is E, there's 2 of them. So right where's E? E, there's 2 of them right here. 2 sources, B and C. They need 2 E's for each of these. So E here is 2 per B and 2 per C. And then F is 2 per C. Here's F. I have 2 of these for every C item because that's my source item. This is my sub item. And then G, 1 per F. Okay, and that's how the information will be coded, and that's how I use it in the MRP. That's the bill of materials. Another input is going to be the inventory records. Okay, in other words, here is example 3 on page 585 in the textbook, and I encourage you to read it. They go into more depth than I do. I simplify it a little bit so we can understand it, so we can understand the basics and fundamentals so we can build on it. Well, here we have the lot size is LFL. That just means lot for lot, and I'll show you exactly what that means. The lead time here is given in weeks. Now, what the lead time means is that when you place an order, it takes this amount of time before you receive the order. The lead time is the time between you place the order and you receive the order. Now, these orders are internal, like manufacturing requisitions, but there's a lead time. I order it. Again, they're going to make it, or they're going to buy it, or however they get it, and then it's coming back. Okay. On hand, this is how much inventory exists initially. Safety stock, we're not doing right now. Allocated, we're not doing this right now in this lecture, in this development. These are important, and as you begin to build and other developments. The low-level code, this code here represents the code within the bill of materials. Over here I have it. So level 0, that's going to be A. Level 1, that's going to be the B and C. Level 2, that's the E and F. Level 3, that's the D and G. And so notice that's what I have here. Level 0 is the A, 1 is B and C, 2 is E and F, 3 is D and G. And the reason they keep these levels is so you know where to look for the source. Level 2 will look for the source on level 1. Level 3 will look for a source on level 2. Okay? However, we don't need all of these. From these 7 different columns, I'm picking column 7 and column 1, 2, 3 right here in this order, 7, 1, 2, 3. This is the information I will use in generating the MRPs in this lecture. So, the information. Oh, and also the information. So I bring these down, the item ID, lot size, lead time, and on hand right here. Okay, and then over here I bring down the level, and over here I bring the bill of materials relationships. So these relationships that I had up here for the B, C, D, E, F, and G, I put them right over here for reference. So this is the MRP information summary. This is the information I'm going to be using to generate each of the MRPs for this development. To keep it simple so we can see what's going on. Okay, so let's do it. Let's get to it. Okay, first let's look at levels 0 and 1, items A, B, and C. Level 0 and level 1, and those are items A, B, and C. They're both lot for lot. The lead time is 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 week. On hand is 10 items, 15 items, 20 items, and here's the bill of materials relationship. Okay, well, level 0 will have no bill of materials relationship. But 1, where do we look for the A? We look at it at level 0. Okay, so let's do it. Let's start with 0. Let's start with the A item, level 0. Okay, first of all, we copy everything down. Okay, so let's see. First over here, the level and the bill of materials, I'll copy this first. Well, there are none, so that's nothing. Okay, then I copy down the, this is a LFL. The LFL is copied right down here, LFL. That's going to, for the planned order receipts, that's going to be the same for everyone, all of them, because LFL is the same for all of them. So we don't get into the other lot size disciplines in this development. Then the lead time. Well, the lead time here is 1 week. So I bring that down here and I say lead time is 1 week. I put it right here. Okay. Then the on hand here is 10. That's over here on hand, projected on hand is 10. And so notice I've copied everything from our information. What I do not have is this information right here. Okay, now there's one more thing we copy, but I don't list it here because they go into it in the textbook. I do not go into it here because that's a whole other type of development, and that is the master production schedule. So the MPS, the master production schedule for for level 0, it will generate the gross requirements for the A item. For the level 0, every level 0 item, the master production schedule will generate the gross requirements. So I just say that. We don't go into the MPS in this course. So now that we have this, now we generate the rest of them. Okay, we only have 50 on week 8. Well, first of all, projected on hand. Well, if we had 10 here at the beginning, then we're going to have 10 on hand in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because we're not really changing anything. That 10 A items in inventory will just stay there. And then coming here, we have a gross requirement of 50. Okay, but we have 10 in stock already. So 50 minus 10 is 40, and that 40 represents my net requirements. My gross requirements is what I need. But if I have projected stock on hand or inventory on hand, I already have 10 in my inventory. So that 10 can satisfy part of that 50. But what's left over is the net requirement of 40. Okay, and then my lot size discipline is LFL, which means that I just copy this down. So now the planned order receipts are going to be the same as my net requirements. Now, once I have my planned order receipts here, then the next row I say, oh, my lead time is 1 week. So then I'm going to come back 1 week, drop down to my planned order releases. So I'm going to release an order on week 7, and I will receive the order on week 8 because the lead time is 1 week. So if I release it on 7, I'll receive it on 8. So there's my planned order releases and my planned order receipts. And there you go. So now, and so that's going to be the A item. So now that we have the A item and we know that we're going to release an order on week 7 for my A item. But then I look down here, well, my A item here is going to be a source item for my B and C, which is my B and C is level 1. Right here. My B and C is level 1. So let's do the B item. Okay, now I go from level 0, I go to level 1. Okay, first of all, I copy this information, B, lot for lot, lead time is 2, on hand is 15. Right here, my lead time is 2, LFL, on hand, whoops, this should be 15, on hand is 15, there it is. Okay, and then I copy down my B equals 2 per A, it should be per A, 2 per A. I copy this down to here. B equals 2 per A. And there it is. Okay, so now, how do we do this? Well, let's see here. I've copied the on hand. I've copied this. Now the gross requirements now will come from the bill of materials information. Well, B, gross requirements for B is 2 for every A. A what? It's the A planned order releases. So here's my A item. Here's my planned order releases. Over here I have 40 at week 7. So I'm going to release an order for 40 on week 7, but for every A item, I need 2 B items. So 2 times 40 is 80, and that's my gross requirements for my B item, the gross requirements. Okay, well, they're gross because I already have 15 in stock. And that 15 is going to carry over to here, so 80 minus 15 leaves a net requirements of 65. So my lot size discipline is LFL. The 65 just copies down. So now I'm going to have planned order receipts at 65 if I order it on the right week. What's the right week? Well, my lead time is 2 weeks. So in order to receive this on week 7, I have to go back 2 weeks, backward schedule, 1, 2, and go down. And on week 5, I have a planned order release of week 5. Of 65 on week 5. So now I know what my planned order release is. Okay, so now that I have my A item and my B item, next let's do the C item. So the C item, let's copy this information down. A C lot for lot, 1 week lead time and 20 on hand. So let's see what we have here. So we have a 1 week lead time LFL, this time 20 on hand. So let's put 20 in there. Okay, and I put 20 over here. Okay, now my bill of materials, what is it? It's 3 per A. So this is going to be 3, and let me say per A. So now I have 3 per A, and now I have everything in there. So the first thing I have to generate is my gross requirements. Well, the gross requirements for my C comes from the bill of materials information. It's 3 C items for every A item. Well, what does the A item mean? Again, it's the planned order releases. Well, again, I have 40 in week 7. So I say, okay, then if I have 40 in week 7, I'm going to place an order for A in week 7 for 40, but I need 3 C's for every A. So 3 times 40 in week 7 equals 120 in week 7, and that's the gross requirements for the C item. Okay, so now that I have that, now I can start filling it in. 20, 20, 20 carries over. Now right here, I have 120 in stock. I mean, a gross requirement of 120. I have 20 in stock. 120 minus 100 is my net requirements. 120 minus 20 represents my net requirements. So therefore, my lot size is LFL. Well, that makes it easy. Then the 100 carries down. And I'm going to have a planned order receipt of 100 as long as I order it on the right week. My lead time is 1 week. So in order to receive this in week 7, I have to backward schedule 1 week to here. So for week 6, I have a planned order release of 100 in week 6. So lead time of 1 week, I'll receive it in week 7. And there you go. So now I have my A item and my B item and my C item. Okay? Very good. Now let me do something before I go on. let me highlight the planned order releases here. And also that's in week 7. So notice what this says. It says I'm going to order a planned order release. I'm going to order 40 A items in week 7. Well, notice what that says. The 40 is how much you're ordering. Week 7 is when you order. Well, how much to order and when to order represents the inventory policy of the A item. So the planned order release row in the MRP represents your inventory policy for that inventory item. So MRP is an inventory technique of dependent demand. But also it's a scheduling technique because it tells you when to order. Well, what's the inventory policy of the B item? Oh, my inventory policy is order 65 in week 5. How much to order? 65. When to order? Week 5. There you go. The C item. How much to order? 100. When to order? Week 6. So we pull off the inventory policy for each one of these MRPs. Okay? Well, let's go on. That's level 1. Whoops, went past it. So let's go on to level 2, E and F. That's the next page. Now level 2 is items E and F. Okay, so let's do E. Now notice E is going to have 2 sources, B source and a C source. Now since it has 2 sources, B and C, I copied the item B planned order releases and item C planned order releases. Why? Because that's what we need from the B and C MRP to generate the E item gross requirements. So let me show you how. Okay, lot for lot, lead time of 2 and on hand of 10. Bring these down. On lead time of 2, LFL, on hand of 10, okay? Well, that's right. So I bring the 10 and put it over here. Okay, now, the bill of materials here, I copy this down, E equals 2B plus 2C. So I have two sources then on where this comes from. So let's generate it. Let's go to the B source. Well, here's the item B planned order releases. I have 65 in week 5. The multiplier is 2. So 2 times 65 is 130 for week 5. That's the gross requirement for my E item depended on my B item demand. Planned order releases. Now what about my C item? My multiplier is 2 and my source item is my C item. So I go to my C item, planned order releases, and I have 100 in week 6. My multiplier is 2 down here, so 2 times 100 is 200 in week 6. So now I have my gross requirements for my E item, and now I can generate the bottom down here. So here I have 10. So 10 begins to carry over. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, right here. Well, I have a gross requirement of 10. I have on hand of 10 projected because we're not there yet. This is the future. This is planning. So 30 minus 10 is 120. That's my net requirements for week 5 of 120. My lot size is LFL, so 120 copies down. Now I plan to receive 120 in week 5 as long as I order it the right time. Well, my lead time is 2 weeks. So in order to receive this, I have to backward schedule 2 weeks, 1, 2. And right there on week 3, I have a planned order release of 120. Planned means I plan to release it into the future. Okay. And then if I receive it into the future, it's going to satisfy 120 plus 10 equals, 120 plus 10 equals my 130. Okay, then the 10 carries over, but this time, well, I've 120 plus 10 is 130 minus 130. It leaves a balance of 0. So I've used them all up. So right here, my gross requirement of 200, it leaves a net requirements of 200. My LFL copies it over. My lead time is 2 weeks. I come back 2 weeks, 1, 2. And in week 4, I have a planned order release of 200. So for my E item, what's my inventory policy? It's order 120 in week 3 and 200 in week 4. Okay, let's do F. Oh, now I have a 3-week lead time and a on hand of 5. And there's my F equals 2 per C. So let's go to the F down here. Here's the F. So I copy this down, 3-week lead time LFL, on hand of 5, and F equals 2 times C. Is that right? Yep, 2 for every C. And this is 3 and 5. And I have 3 here and 5. Good to go. Okay, so first I look, my multiplier is 2, and my source item is my C item. So I go to my C item up here, right here, and I have, on week 6 I have 200. I have 100, So down here, my multiplier is 2, so 2 times 100 in week 6 equals 200 in week 6. There's my gross requirements for my F item. And then I generate the rest of the MRP. I bring the 5 over on hand, and so the 5, 5, 5 carries over. So right here, I have 5 on hand, but a gross requirement of 200. 200 minus 5 is 195. My LFL lot size discipline copies that down, and I plan to receive 195 in week 6 to satisfy my gross requirements. That 195 is going along with is adding to my projected on hand to satisfy my gross requirements. So I plan to receive that as long as I order at the right time. The lead time is 3 weeks. So right here I go back through a backward schedule, 1, 2, 3, and so I had planned to release an order of 195 in week 3. So what's my inventory policy? Order 195 when? Week 3. So that's level 2. Okay, we can back up here. Let's do level 3. And so we just do it again. Okay, we come down here. Here's level 3, items D and G. D and G. Okay, so here's D, and notice I have 2 sources now. I have a B source, I have an F source, and an F source. So I bring the B and F item planned order releases down here, and I copy them from above, copy them from the B MRP and the F MRP, because I'm going to be using these to generate the gross requirement of my D and my G item, using those multipliers. Okay, let's do the D. LFL, lead time of 1, and the inventory, the on hand, projected on hand is 10. Let's copy that down. 1 week, LFL, 10. Okay, I'm good to go. Now I bring down the D is 2 per B and 2 for F, 2 per B and 2 per F. So let's do it. Go to the B source. Here's my B source. On week 5, it's 65. My multiplier is 2. 2 times 65 is going to be 130 in week 5. That's the gross requirements for my D item depended on my B item. But I'm also going to add my F item. My multiplier is 2. So my F item here, I have 195 in week 3, and 2 times 195 is 390. So it's 390 in week 3. Okay, so now that I have my gross requirements, now I can generate the rest of my MRP. So I bring the 10 over, 10, 10, and then right here I have a gross requirement of 390. 390 minus 10 is 380. That's my net requirement. Well, my lot size discipline is lot for lot, so the 380 copies over. I plan to receive 380 if I order at the right time. The lead time is 1 week, so therefore I go back 1 week, backward schedule 380 for week 2. So I plan to release an order of 380 on week 2. And that's my inventory policy for my DI. Well, not done yet. And so therefore, since 380 plus 10, well, first of all, that is true. Order 380 on week 2. But I have another one down here. So I have another gross requirement to satisfy. 380 plus 10 is 390 minus 390 equals 0. Okay? So now I have 0, but I have a gross requirement of 130. So that 130 becomes my net requirement. Since I have LFL, it carries over. My lead time of 1 week, I backward schedule 1 week. And I plan to release an order of 130 in week 4. That will satisfy my 130 gross requirement in week 5. So there's my inventory. There's my entire inventory policy for those 8 weeks. As of today, as of when I generated the MRP, my inventory item for my D item is order 380 in week 2, order 130 in week 4. And finally, G. Well, G is just 1 per F. No, this is no inventory on hand, and a lead time of 2 weeks. 2 weeks, LFL, no on hand, 1 per F, okay? And so if I look at my F item here, it's 195 in week 3. Multiply that by 1. So the 195 comes down in week 3. I have nothing on hand, so when that comes to here, well, the 195 just becomes my net requirements. Because I have nothing on hand, I have no inventory on hand to address that, so everything has to come from my net requirements. From my LFL, my lot size, my planned order release will be for 195 items. My lead time is 2 weeks, a back order 2 weeks. And I have a planned order release in week 1 of 195. So now that 195 then will satisfy my gross requirements. So now notice I have all of these inventory items. And I could go back and say, what's my inventory policy? Okay, I have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 0. So what I could do here is add another column. And so for my A, B, C, E, F, D, G, this is my inventory policy. How much to order and when to order. Okay, so discussion. Now remember, instead of supplier, we are looking at ordering. We are receiving inventory, but usually MRP, it's ordering it from a supplier, external, or that supplier could be an internal production. And the customer could be an internal product, and also for the 0 level, it could be a customer. So we're still using this input-output model. It's just on dependent demand this time. This demand is dependent because it's within the bill of materials. Okay, some discussion. Safety stock. Now, safety stock is inventory carried to guard against stock out, just like the stock out in inventory analysis. We covered that before. Now, the amount of safety stock depends on the variability of the demand. So when that demand, the dependent demand coming down, when there's a lot of variability, and what companies will do would carry more safety stock to guard against stock out. Now, if the variability in the demand is very small, you don't need that much safety stock because it's expensive to carry the inventory. Time fences. There's also something called time fences. Time fences are intervals of time that establish policy. In other words, you have a lead time, and you notice here. Let's go back to our bill of materials. The graph, the hierarchy. Here it is. Okay, notice as we come down here, we're going to have lead times coming down here. Well, B and C are dependent on A. E and F are dependent on B and C. Okay, well, each one of these has a lead time. These have a lead time, and these have a lead time. So they all have lead times. So right here, you will have some on hand. So if the demand for the A item increases or decreases less than, or let's say increases, less than what you have on hand, you don't really have to order anything. In other words, for the A item, here it is. Okay, and suppose that this right here was 51. Well, this just becomes 41, and it doesn't really increase anything. It just increases this as we come down, how much we're ordering. Okay, but what if this 50 was right here in week 2? What if it was in week 1? If that 50 was in week 1, then we have to have a planned order receipt of 40 in week 1. The lead time is 1 week. We don't have enough lead time to satisfy that. So during this time, they say, well, there's a time fence in here that you fence here. You can't go above a certain amount. So what if my demand was 1? Well, I have 10. I don't need to order anything. What if my demand grocery requirement was 5? If it was 5, I have 5 here, and this projected on the hand will just decrease to 5 then. 5 goes to my grocery requirements, and 5 stay in my inventory. But if it goes above 10, then I do not have enough lead time to satisfy that. Okay? So in this case, this time fence right here would be 10. 0 to 10 during week 1, I can have a grocery requirement of 0 to 10, nothing more than that. But what about 2 through 8, this kind of thing? Well, this is a lead time here, this is a lead time, this is a lead time. Then come down here, and level 2 is lead time, level 2. Level 3 here, level 3 is a lead time. Aha, looky here. On G, even though A up here, even though A is way down here on 8, then down here on your G here, that 8, because the lead time stack up, goes all the way to a planned order release on the very first week. So, logically, what if this 50 in your A item here, what if this 50 though was 2 through 7? Well, that would shove everything back 1 week to be ordered 1 week earlier. Okay, what if it was to 6 or 5? That'd be 2 weeks early, 3 weeks early, 4 weeks early. If we come all the way down to F, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks early, you can't order it because it's in the past. So there's a time fence there of ordering that much that early. Okay, and so that's what the time fences really mean. And so a good MRP software will tell you, here's the time fence, and here's an interval, and here's the policy that you can order within this time fence. As you go deeper, further in time, into the future, then usually you can order more because you have enough lead time to satisfy it. Okay. Lot size techniques. Well, the lot sizing techniques include the fixed lot sizes, which I didn't cover, minimum lot sizes I didn't cover, EOQ I didn't cover in this development, and algorithms, such as the least total cost algorithm, the part period PPA, the part period algorithm, the part period balancing, and the Wagner-Witten algorithm. So these are algorithms. An algorithm just says these are actually lot sizing disciplines that focus, or lot sizing techniques that focus specifically on the lot size. These algorithms will look at a bigger picture to go through an algorithm to determine what your lot size is. So both will generate a lot size, but these really are these right here, and also your LFL. Those are just saying, here's how you order, without really analyzing it. Here's your net requirements for LFL, your net requirements. that's your order. So there is no analysis. But the algorithm will go through an algorithm to determine what that order is. So it's a little bit, it goes beyond this course, more technical. Now extensions. First of all, MRP2. MRP2 is often called manufacturing resource planning, MRP2. Instead of material requirements planning, it's manufacturing resource planning. Often it's called that. Well, MRP2, whatever it's called, incorporates objectives into the MRP, like cost objectives, efficiency objectives, service level objectives. Okay, and MRP is principally a time-phased order point technique. And this time-phased order point technique simply means you order what you need when you need it according to the time. In other words, when we saw a lead time of 1 week, we backward scheduled 1 week and ordered it. We didn't go back 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We could have. It wasn't going to violate anything, except that's not a time-phased order point technique. Time-phased means the phase is the interval of time in which you order the order point, into which you place your order to exactly satisfy what you need. You don't do it before, you don't do it later, more or less, it's just what you need. That's MRP. But MRP2 includes other objectives. Well, maybe you want to order it earlier for one reason or the other. There's a lot of different reasons why you start modifying MRP and changing the technique to a different technique. That's MRP2. Well, when you start doing that, you begin to see, oh, I can start including scheduling. I can start including different type of forecasting. I can advanced planning. So it's called a closed loop MRP. When MRP is linked through information and coordination with other units within the business unit related to material handling, like scheduling or quality control or maintenance or whatever. Okay, so it really doesn't change MRP, but closed loop just closes the loop, so all the resources needed to run the material handling. Okay, another extension is called DRP, distribution resource planning. Here it is down here, distribution resource planning. Okay, when the concept of MRP is used, I'll say, outside the business unit, such as in the supply chain, upstream and downstream, the resulting technique that enhances logistics and control is called DRP. In other words, look what MRP does. It says, here's what you need, here's your net requirements, and then you upward schedule and you order it. Well, that's done within an organization usually, or to a supplier. But what if you just wanted to ship it? What if it was just logistics or control of your logistics, of your supplier upstream or your customer downstream outside the business unit? The concept can still be used. And sometimes the actual software can be modified so that you have a logistical scheduling technique. Okay, that's DRP. Now finally, ERP. Now ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. Okay, now ERP came about as an evolution of MRP, MRP2, closed loop MRP. People began to realize, well, once this is under control and it works very well, let's just keep adding to it, adding to it, adding to it. So MRP, ERP represents MRP and its extensions that expands to encompass all aspects of the internal business unit to better coordinate with external systems such as upstream supplier relationship management systems and downstream customer relationship management systems, etc. In other words, warehouse management systems, forecasting systems, maintenance systems, quality control systems. So ERP connects, well, closed loop connects things that support. Closed loop begins to coordinate all the information required for material handling. ERP takes the material handling and the scheduling and everything, upstream, downstream. It coordinates internally to satisfy everything. And so the ERP systems are software that people buy today to manage everything internally, so it connects with external partners, either upstream or downstream, or lateral. You can have a lateral too. Okay, now this focuses on internal coordination. I don't have it here, but lately, because of the internet, because of technology, there's something called ERP2. ERP2, which does the same thing ERP does, but it also incorporates the upstream and downstream as if it's one big company. Okay, upstream is for suppliers, downstream is customers or the market. And so there's where people can market an individual person. And you're marketed every time you order something from Amazon. They have an ERP2 or ERP3 system that focuses just on you. So there's the evolution of MRP. And that's why I covered in this course. Because the idea and concept of keeping track of things, backward scheduling and ordering things, and having relationships is essential to efficiency and productivity, low cost, and high service levels. So that's the lecture on MRP as an introduction. As you might guess, there's a lot more to it, but this is a good foundation. If you understand this, then you can start building on it and modifying. And that's the purpose of this course, and that's the purpose of this lecture. So I hope this helps. Between now and the next time I see you, I want to urge everyone